Welcome everyone to the on-demand recording of our presentation on personalization. The presentation was originally recorded on September 25th, 2019 as a lunch and learn designed to give our listeners the information that they need without taking up too much of their time. In this session, I cover the basics of creating personalized direct marketing messages that capture attention and help your organization stand out from your competition. And before I get started, I'd like to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Allison Jensen, and I'm the marketing manager for Compu-Mail. A little bit about us. Compu-Mail works with progressive marketers to increase customer spend by helping them talk to their customers, donors, their patrons in a way that their competition isn't. And we serve a variety of industries in this way, including retail, education, nonprofit, insurance, casino gaming, financial, and others. Since this is an on-demand recording, I'm not going to go over all of the housekeeping items, but I will leave them here for your reference. And our contact information will be available at the end of the presentation, and you're welcome to reach out to me at any time with any questions that you might have. For those of you that might be tweeting about this presentation, please feel free to tag us at your Compu-Mail. And with that, we will jump to the recorded content and get started. So I like to begin a lot of my presentations with a set of definitions. This is just to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all looking at the information from the same perspective. We're going to be talking about personalization a lot today, and between that and the resource that I send out later, you're likely to hear the phrase one-to-one marketing or one-to-one communications a lot. And I found a great definition of this from a resource called Dynamic Yield. So one-to-one marketing is defined as often expressed as one-to-one. One-to-one marketing implies a more personal approach to customer relationship building by narrowing broad communications down to individualized experiences. So we'll be using the terms personalization, individualization, those can be used interchangeably. And you're also likely to hear the phrase variable data printing pretty often as well. So variable data printing is defined as a form of digital printing, including on-demand printing, in which elements such as text, graphics, and images may be changed from one printed piece to the next. And again, interchangeable with that might be fully variable imaging, fully variable data, and so on. And sometimes instead of personalization, again, you might hear the word individualization. It's all talking about the same thing, the same type of experiences. A quick note too about these types of terms. I was speaking with somebody the other day that was currently using a mail merge system through a Word document, and it was becoming too much for them to handle internally. Fully variable data, that whole concept, you can imagine it as a more robust version of a mail merge, and it has to do with the way that the document is set up with copy and business rules, so that you can add more than just a name and address information to the piece. You can just create one template, dictate which pieces are personalized and what they should say for each person or segment, and then the output is completely personalized communication pieces. So in order for your personalization to be effective, you want to make sure that you're keeping good data. This means collecting as much customer experience history and other data on your contacts as you can and appending what else is needed. And that just refers to working with a list provider to fill in the blanks. The trouble with appending information that you haven't collected directly yourself, or even using some of the data that you do have from your first-party research, is just making sure that you're not making too many assumptions, especially on sensitive information like gender, pronouns, titles, and things like that. One of the worst things that you can do with personalization is offend somebody with it. It's really challenging to win someone back after making a mistake like that. So if you ask yourself, why personalize? Here's a few statistics to show why it is effective. Nearly 80% of customers or consumers are more likely to do business with a company that offers personalized experiences. And targeting customers on a one-to-one level increases response rates up to 50% or more. And it really just boils down to one thing. People love to see their name in print. So in order to create those personalized or one-to-one experiences with your data, you want to keep two things in mind. So the first is what data is the most impactful, and the second thing is where it's most impactful, so where it's most likely to catch attention. So let's look at the what first. I just said that people love to see their name in print, so name is definitely an important variable. For retailers, using a person's name on the offer line and saying, Thomas, take 30% off your order, catches their attention and makes them feel as though the offer or the postcard is written just for them. Another example is for nonprofit organizations, and a simple way to personalize an appeal letter is by addressing the donor by their name on the salutation of the letter. instead of just saying friend or some other generic greeting. Here I have a letter that we recently sent to nonprofit organizations pulling in their name. So their name here on the salutation line, their organization name is pulled in, and then there's other elements that are kind of pulled into the letter to give it a personalized feel that looks very natural when you're reading it. And beyond the name, you can get more granular. In this example for a fictional tire company, we tailored the piece to the type of service that the recipient might need next when they would need it. So if they came in for an oil change a couple months ago, then their postcard might have an $8 off offer on their next extra mile oil change. If they, they haven't had their brakes done in a while, the offer might include a discount on the brakes or rotors or things like that, just to get them thinking, it's time for the next service, and here's a discount on that service to incentivize them to come in. And I thought it would be on here too. I have another example where we can also pull in the make, the model, and the year of the car in question for a piece like this. So, it might say your 2014 Chevy Malibu is due for an inspection or oil change or whatever that type of service is, and then you see it and this piece is just for me. They're not just sending it out to everybody who may or may not need an oil change. They know I specifically need an oil change because of the customer data that they keep on my file. And when you think about where to place the personalization elements, you want to think about how the reader is going to read the piece. So if you're sending them a letter, the first thing they're going to see is the outside of the envelope. And this is a great opportunity to include a personalized teaser message to entice them to open the piece. And here I have an example of a customer appreciation piece that we sent. It has the recipient's name. Here's my seed copy of it, so it has my name on there. Right on the outside front of the envelope to make an immediate connection. It says, thankful for you, Allison, so I know, again, this piece was made, with me specifically in mind. And then I pulled in the letter that I just showed you a minute ago. I pulled that back up, just as a demonstration of, showing how the piece would be read. Typically when you think about reading letters, you read them top to bottom, left to right, and this is important for design purposes, so at the very top, you want your logo on there. You want, if you have a call to action or something, you can put that up at the top of the letter. And then the rest of it, you just want it to flow naturally. It's all about, personalization is all about making things flow naturally. And if you're sending a postcard, you might want to consider keeping important messages and offers near the address block. Because it's going to be one of the first things that people will look at, when they're checking to see who the recipient is. They'll also be seeing whatever is around that address block. And an important thing to remember is that personalization doesn't have to just be text or other copy. It could be images, and you could establish business rules to pull in product images or other visuals that are the most relevant or meaningful to that recipient. So let's say this person, Krista, was shopping online. She filled a few things in her shopping cart, and then she left it without making a purchase. We pull that in as a personalization element. We pull in the discount offer of the 30% off of accessories, and then ideally each of these products featured the day bed, the patchwork, the chair, the love seat, and things like that. Those could be things that she was looking at when she was online, and we're pulling in the images of things that she had already been searching for, so that when she goes to make the purchase again, she can just pick up exactly where she left off. And the idea of personalizing images recently came up at a session that I attended during the fall NMOA conference earlier this month. That's the National E-Tailing and Mailing Organization of America. And we were talking about pet supply companies and how they can appeal to dog owners by using pictures of the same breed of dog that the piece is advertising to. They can pull in the dog's name, other information that the supply company might be able to collect based on previous orders. And this is important because it makes the dog owner feel great knowing how much the company cares about them, and more specifically and more importantly, how much the company cares about their dog. And it gives the marketing a more human element. So to make all of this happen, one of the very first things to work out with your print provider is the business rules that define the personalization so that the automation of this process can be set. This time is for determining what variable elements you want to include in the piece, where you want them, and if you want variable blocks of text or images, depending on who is reading the piece and things like that. And this might sound overwhelming. It might sound, how do I get started with that kind of thing? When you work with a provider like Compu-Mail, where this is something that we do every day, we can easily help you figure out what your needs are, what resources you have, and how you can best be leveraging your information with variable print. And as I wrap up today's presentation, I'd like to leave you with some other design tips. I'm pulling up a postcard so we can see, as you're designing the piece, you want to make sure that your logo is prominently displayed. So here, in this fictional Compu-Mail clothing company, we have the logo front and center, or not center, but front and up in the top left corner where the return address would be. And you just want to make sure that, that's prominent so that the piece reflects your brand, and then that allows you to remain consistent with your other branding and marketing messages. And it's also important to consider whether your offer and call to action or your CTA is prominent as well, so the reader knows exactly what you want them to do next. It's really important to lay out that next step without making them guess what it would be. And along those same lines, clearly indicating how to redeem your offer or make a donation is another feature to display prominently. Again, you do not want to make the recipient guess what the next step is or how to take that next step. Because if it takes them longer than a few seconds to be able to respond, the likeliness that they will respond will go down. They might just, abandon the effort. So here in this example, we have, your online offer is very prominent on here. So we have the website down here at the bottom, and then we have the redemption code right here, so they know where to go, they know how to redeem their offer, and then they can proceed from there. So these tips, combined with everything else that we have been covering on personalization, all work together to help you create highly targeted marketing messages that stand out from your competition. And, generic or static messaging certainly has a time or place, especially if you don't have the resources to collect or maintain the data. But generic messaging doesn't really help if you're looking to be a bit more progressive in targeting a specific audience or product. Personalization or individualization, it's just only beneficial in the long run and helps increase your overall response rates. If you're interested in learning more about personalization, you can always contact us. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be sending out copies of our e-guide, Personalization Made Easy, which has some really great tips for personalizing your campaigns. And I just updated it this week to make sure that it included some of the latest statistics, including some things that I learned at the NMOA conference earlier this month. So hopefully that's a really great resource for you. And again, if you do need help coordinating any of your direct mail campaigns, we're here for you. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are a full-service mail service provider. We work closely with the United States Postal Service to ensure that you're getting the best possible postage rates and the most timely delivery of your mail. Our primary focus is on delivering quality print and mail solutions, and our expertise in various disciplines of direct marketing might provide a valuable solution for you to simplify your campaigns. And we hope you find as much value in this content and in this concept as we do. So with that, we will move to the question portion. Feel free to use the chat function to ask a question. Okay, and somebody had mentioned when they were signing up for the presentations, they were interested in learning some of the best ways to create artwork for direct mail that causes more people to open it. And I tried to address some of this in slide 16 when I talked about other design tips, but I do want to make sure that it's completely addressed here. The industry standard, according to the DMA, is a 9% response to house files, and I believe it's around 1% for prospect files. And the types of campaigns that are experiencing these rates are making sure that they have consistent messaging, clear calls to action, and other next steps. They're thinking about how the mail pieces work in conjunction with other marketing campaigns that they're running, in omni-channel campaigns instead of siloed direct mail only efforts. These pieces are easy to read and understand. They're well designed with images to break up blocks of text, and they use personalization to make a personal or individual connection with the recipient. And, when you do work with us, not only is our expert team, always available to make recommendations, but we can also run your design by a USPS design piece analyst to ensure that your design will meet the specifications set forth by the USPS. And a frequent question that we get is, does adding personalization to my campaigns increase the cost? And the answer is that adding personalization does not increase the cost of a campaign significantly. There could be some one-time setup fees involved with establishing the business rules and then determining your roadmap for personalization. But beyond that, the process is generally the same whether you're running personalized campaigns or you're running generic or static ones. And the inkjet presses that we have on our production floor are set up the same way no matter what type of campaign is running. And perhaps more importantly, people often ask us if adding personalization even works. And the answer is yes. I mean, even just adding personalized salutation fields or name fields will increase the response rates. I mentioned a couple of times that people love to see their name in print, and that's because people always gravitate or respond better when they see their name. You can think about this if you're, walking around at work. If you hear someone say, "Hey, how are you?" How long might it take you to realize they're talking to you and not to anybody else? But if they say your name and ask how you are, and you can respond to them right away. So taking personalization to the next level with custom tailored products, offers, and imagery just increases the response rates that much further. Another question that we find ourselves being asked is if there is any way that someone can personalize a piece for an anonymous audience. And this has a lot to do with the concept of IP targeting or pulling in website data via cookies and other online identifiers. It certainly is possible, and there's some information that you can work with, but there's so many regulations around this, so many general privacy concerns that you don't really want to be too obvious about the personalization if you are pulling in anonymous data. You could pull in what products they might have been looking at and recommend other things that they might like, but calling them out by name might be a little bit too much of that creepy marketing factor that could, drive them away. And you also don't know for sure who was shopping online and who they were shopping for if it's a multi-person household. So that's one case where generic or static messaging could potentially be a better fit, just to kind of reduce those risks. And if you're wondering how to personalize based on customer history or other events, we did a webinar on trigger marketing back in March that I can share with you. And in it, we talk about how marketers can see where customers are in the decision-making process based on their actions or lack thereof of actions. And this kind of data-driven marketing tells us where, when, and what to communicate to prospective customers. And the best part is that, as with personalization in general, the answer is that the information for triggered marketing is already in the data that you're already collecting. And I will leave this open for another minute or two, just in case anybody has any questions for us. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come through, so with that, I will sign off. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great rest of your day.